Well, thank you for being patient. You have a lot going on today. I believe you said you have a wedding later on today. Is that correct?
I do. I have my goddaughter getting married, but the funny thing about it is I'm not really good with a computer unless it's a police computer. So I've been trying to connect for about 15 minutes going crazy, but God is good.
Yes, he is. Thank you so much for your persistence. Um, Again, welcome. We're so fortunate to have you here today. Uh, Indeed, we're fortunate to have you with us, Officer Robinson, who has been a member of the police force for a period of time. She is obviously very knowledgeable. She is Black and also is going to be sharing with us her experiences and observations as someone who is a Black female officer in the Philadelphia area. So it's up to you.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say good morning. And I want to first of all thank God for the opportunity this morning. And I never like to give the enemy any credit, but I will definitely say I'm sitting in front of two computers. So I know I definitely have something to say that's going to change some people's perspective, especially what I had to go through. But thank you so much. And also thank you for uh, the pastor. Thank you for Abington Presbyterian Church for inviting me to come. And from, I guess, obviously from the last Zoom call. So I'm very thankful for that. So yes, I am Officer Robin Robinson. I have been with the department going on my 16th year. I started out as a Philadelphia sheriff. And when I thought about, the topic today and, the operations of being a Black female officer, I'll just say first, there's always a difference, which is really sad, but it's true. It's different from being a Black female. It's different from being a female, period. And it's definitely different based on your age, gender. So to say about being judged every day, we're definitely judged every day. And also, the most important thing for me to start out by saying is I came on the job as a Christian, and that's how I plan on leaving. So, which makes a difference also. Um, when I thought about what I was going to speak about this morning, the first thing that came to mind is why is it so different being a Black officer and Black female? Well, first of all, the first scenario I would give is when I was a Philadelphia sheriff deputy, I had an interview with the sheriff, the main sheriff, which was John Green at the time. And he looked at my resume when I walked in, and he happened to be in the interview. I was shocked to see him, but he was in the interview. And the first thing he did was, it was a positive light. He said, on a positive note, your resume looks, tremendous. Like almost like, why do you even want to do this? And then on the other side, he said, I want you to know this is not going to be a glamorous job. And I guess because he saw my resume and the background was so diverse with modeling and, some TV, etc. And I said, I'm here to do a job. If you don't judge me for, how I look and the job that I can do and just read the resume, you'll be pleased. And the first thing he said was, oh, if you don't mind, we're looking for a PR person. And he was serious, even though I was going to be a deputy officer, he was looking for a PR person. And I thought, wow, this is great. So I did that for a year or so. And then I got called to Philadelphia Police Department. Now, the difference was, and I'm going to be really honest today, the difference was in the academy, right off the bat, I don't use the word hate. That's not a word I choose to use, but we were told in the academy that Black female officers are the most hated on the job. Now, when you're starting now, thank God I had maturity and age because I didn't take offense to that, but I also knew I wanted to basically, wonder why you would feel that way. And then also out of curiosity, why would you tell me this at the beginning of my career? Well, obviously some years later, I definitely understand, why that's said. So where some people can appreciate your experience, other people also feel as though that maybe your experience is not going to fit the criteria, what they're looking for. Because if the criteria is looking for a female, but not a Black female, or if the criteria is that we need a white male, or also on the other hand, we're looking for that Black male. So a lot of times the Black female gets, left behind. And then the only sad reality also is in the police department, everything is about a test. So if you're a person who maybe have the experience, if you're the person who maybe more qualified, it's about your college experience. It's about how well you did on the test, opposed to actually, doing the job. So on the positive side, every day I go to work, I thank God for the opportunity. I really did sign up for the right reason. I signed up to truly help people. I've been doing that my whole life. Also, I always say every day before I start work, I always talk to God first, obviously, and want to come home safe. But the most important thing I always say to him is, God, allow your will to be done. So even meaning with that, on the terrible side, if I don't make it home, I know it was his will, but what's important to me is to know where I'm going. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I also know what I signed up for. And I say God will be done, because no matter what attacks me on a daily basis, because I am on the streets of Philadelphia, so it's not like I'm sitting, behind a desk or, something like that, where when people see you on the average, that's what they're thinking. They're thinking when they see you, a certain look of a female, maybe on the better looking side, or how you carry yourself. The first thing people will say is, oh, honey, be careful out there, or you're too cute to be, on the street. And I tell people all the time, it's not about how you look, because if someone wants to harm you in any way, they're not going to look at you and say, oh, I'm not going to harm you based on how you look. But they will look at you to see how you treat them. They'll look at you to see how you're wearing that uniform, how you treat people, how positive you are, or how negative you come across. So there's so much more I can say, but it's rewarding to me because, like I said, I help people every day. But it's also a different time being a police officer now, and obviously being a Black female, because if you know how the world is now, it's always, the talk is about the Black male that's being attacked by police, etc. And then you have the Black female, either their counterpart, their mother, but it's never in a positive light. And if you do hear about a Black female, if you notice with today's society, all you're going to really hear about are the first Black commissioner, the first Black chief, the first, and it's really sad, because that's a blessing for everyone who wants to make rank and be the first. But what about the people that fall, in the middle? The people that you may not know about. You may only know about me from the Zoom call, and then I'm proud to say I'm on the streets of Philadelphia, because what happens is people do want to judge you to think that, oh, you're the person that's working inside. And when they know and they realize I'm the one that's working on the street, and I'm the one that's going to come to your door, come to your rescue, I'm the one that's going to deal with the dead body and everything else, is almost like, really, they're like surprised. And then I don't like to talk about age on the job, but then they're thinking, well, why are you still out there at your age? Couldn't you be doing something else? So it's really, it goes on different ends of perspective. But I appreciate it. I love the work I do. I wouldn't trade it in for anything in the world. And I'm glad for the opportunity, these days, to do different Zoom calls, because I think it's time to put a face with a name and to find out really who's going out there doing what they're doing. So if you have any questions for me, I can go on, but I'll take questions at this time also.
Thank you so much. I just want to remind all of our participants to please keep yourself muted until you'd like to ask her a question.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question for you, and that is, I believe you have children. Is that correct?
No, I am divorced with no
Okay,
children.
okay.
But
I
I
was gonna,
have a very spoiled dog.
fair enough, fair enough.
Okay, if there's no questions, I'll go on too. And I'm glad you asked a question about children because that's another thing on the job. Uh, I have a mother I take care of also, who thank God, made it through Corona, and she's trying to stay safe now also. But this job is also, it's about the people who have the children, who have the husbands, and I'll just say this. I came on a job married, and sad to say, I'm divorced now with no children, but it doesn't change what goes on in my life to say what I can do and what I can't do. It's not because I don't have a husband at home waiting for me or children that, I taking care of my mother very seriously. But even with that, I tell people we know what we signed up for, and they're not going to look at you and say, "Oh, you don't have any children, so you can go ahead and do this." That's not how it goes. When it comes down to saying we have 12-hour days and no days off, and your days off are canceled, or it's mandatory overtime, once again, you know what you signed up for, and you just go ahead and do the job at hand.
Officer Robinson, thank you for your service. Could you give us, do you have statistics for how many, what percentage of the police force in Philadelphia are people of color? How many are females of color? And how does that impact the overall duties of the police force?
Okay, statistics are hard to say because they'll say we're made up about 6,500 officers, and they might say maybe 30% are black, or maybe 25% or 30% are female. But it's hard to say because you have officers whenever they do the numbers. And I know this because I did work for a boss years ago, a chief. And basically what happens is it's drawn up by the whole officers as a whole, but then it goes by also how many officers are injured, how many officers, are long-term disability, how many officers, work the street, how many officers work inside. So it's kind of really hard to just say 20%, 30%. And as far as officers as a whole, you don't know, who may be running time for retirement, so you really can't really say that. But I will say this. The lowest numbers would definitely be the black females, the minorities, for sure.
Hi, thank you, Officer Robinson, for your service and for
Thank
being
you.
with us. Um, what what would you look at in terms of going forward? Are you looking at serving on the street throughout the rest of your career, or are you looking at moving into administration ranks, management, supervision, etc.?
That's a great question. I came on the job, which what made me switch over from sheriff to police. In my mind, in my little girl self, I always dreamed of being a detective. And I knew I would be great for that position, but it's also the position that you have to take a test for. So I did work with homicide task force for a number of years, and matter of fact, from '08 to 15. And I did that in the capacity of helping homicide because I was one of those officers that were good with informants and good with, getting the information from the street. So my aspirations were to be a detective. Now, with the test being on hold, or maybe passing the test but not low enough, and different things like that, believe it or not, I love the street, I really do. But I do know it's been um time for me to move on, for quite some time. But it's not up to me, because you can be transferable, but you're also playing the waiting game, and I always just, say give it to God, because no matter how long you're waiting, I do believe in God's timing. So no, I would not want to be, on the streets any longer, any day. But on the other hand, I love the people I work with. I love my supervisors. So I love coming to work every day, but no. And as far as administration, I'm sorry, whatever I do, I would love to be outside with the people doing it, no matter what I do, no matter how far I plan on going, as long as I'm dealing with people in a professional manner and actually being used, with my gifts and ability, to help the streets of Philadelphia. That's what I want to do. Great question. Thank you so much.
Officer Robinson, good morning.
Good morning.
I work for the Free Library of Philadelphia, so I've had a lot of partnerships with the different police districts. And I'm wondering if you could share with everybody what it is that happens after a violent crime has taken place in a neighborhood. Because, for everybody who watches the news, we know about the crime scene investigation. But once the crime scene investigation is over, what happens with dealing with the community trauma, and what happens with dealing with any of the underlying stress that is in the neighborhood, residual side effects of like somebody wanting to seek vengeance? Because I know that there's organizations like PAN that come in, there's Neighbors Helping Neighbors, there's a number of other community-based groups. And I'm wondering if you could say something about what the follow-up is after a violent crime has happened and the scars and impact it has on the community.
Okay. Well, first of all, one thing about being a police officer, we all have a different job. So let's say, for example, someone got murdered. Okay. You have people in homicide that help you with that from the beginning to the end. You have people like victim assistance officers, who will give you all the information for your family to help you on that side. So, and then if you have a regular neighborhood crime, you have people in the captain's office, once again, victim assistance officers who are able to give the family, help, tell them the programs and all of that. So what will happen is the actual street officer does not really, you'll give them the information, but after the crime happens, we pretty much are still in the street doing what we do. But you have the inside people in different units who would give the people in the neighborhood all the information. But of course, if someone comes up to us, we will give them also the information, who to call, who they can talk to. But as far as after the crime happens, the street officer continues to do the street. But it's also the units, it's the captain's offices, it's the, like the third floor, which is, those supervisors, the bosses of patrol. They're the ones who will give them the information to know where to go for the help after the crime has already happened. Does that answer your question?
Well, honestly, I was trying to egg some more information out of you. I wasn't sure whether or not you'd ever worked with like the Philadelphia Anti-Drug, Anti-Violence Network. And
No, I have not.
Oh, okay.
I have not. I've worked with Project Lifesaver. I do a lot of training with the police department, but all my training is mainly to help the people. Like there was a program called Project Lifesaver years ago for the people, young or old, who were autistic, and we were trained that if that person was lost, how to care for them. Or if that person, we also had another program that if that person was suicidal, So in other words, you have certain trainings for certain things. In other words, you're not going to send that officer to that scene to help someone if they're not known, and experienced and trying to talk someone else off a ledge, or find a kid that is missing or a person with Alzheimer's. So yeah, so what happens is in the police department, if you are not trained for that, sometimes it just happens. But if you're not trained in certain areas, you're not going to come if you're not the person to be able to help in that situation. And then sometimes it's just basically being a human being and knowing what you signed up for. So if I come to the scene and you're trying to kill yourself, it's just me and my human nature spirit to be able to know I can help you. I can pray with you. I can do what I can as an officer. That's why the maturity comes in, and also your experience and your training. It all kicks in. So on a daily basis, we don't look for the jobs find us on a daily basis. But other than that, there's units and different people that handle those jobs on a daily basis.
Officer Robinson, I noticed this past week there was a collection of weapons which were made available, no questions asked. You could turn in the weapons, I think in Point Breeze. And I saw the weapons they'd collected. It looked like they were rather, well, not very, very impressive in terms of the number that were collected, because obviously the gun control laws in the state of Pennsylvania are much more lax than in Philly. Do those programs you think help or work, or what's the purpose of the collection of rather minuscule number of weapons?
Okay, even though that's not my area, but I will tell you this. The purpose of that is because the main purpose is to get weapons off the street and to let people feel as though that you can come to the police. And if you have a weapon in the home or on the street that you found, is no questions asked. Because a lot of people, sad to say, if they found a weapon, they're not going to really call us to say, here it is. Because once again, you don't know what the weapon, does it have a body on it? Was there a murder involved? You have no idea what's the story behind the weapon. But when you say no questions asked, and maybe there's going to be, money, gift card, or whatever, sad to say, people are going to come, in droves, as they say. And it does help because whether it's an older weapon, newer weapon, there's no questions asked. And no matter how you look at it, they're keeping weapons off the street. Now, where they're getting them, that's the thing. The same person standing in line who may be a felon or, may have a record, who know they couldn't do it, any other way. That's why I think it's a good program.
Officer Robinson, would you be willing to share a little bit just of your personal life and kind of the role that race played growing up? If you recall the panel discussion with Fred Goldstein, there was you and some of the other panelists just talked about your own experiences growing up and how you were treated, for example, or are there certain memories that stand out to you? I think that we would love, if you're willing, just to hear kind of some of that to understand, your experience.
Okay, sure. I was raised in my mother and father were together for years and then they divorced. I was raised definitely middle class, but I had I still have, thank God, two great parents. My mother was an accountant. My father was a supervisor. Matter of fact, one of the first Black supervisors at Sears and Roebuck on the Boulevard. So to say that I was blessed growing up, I definitely was. I knew, I didn't know I lived in a single home, with grass until kids say, you have a pool. So you don't really realize how privileged you are until, kids start talking when they come over your house. So I was from Philadelphia and then my mother remarried and I was raised in New Jersey. I didn't start out wanting to be in law enforcement, but when I was younger, I was the one that, when I would go visit my grandmother in North Philadelphia, don't even ask me why, but I was the one probably who watched too much TV, watched too much news. So I always felt like in the bad neighborhoods. And I did know my grandmother's neighborhood was bad. How did I know? I can't really tell you, but I remember hearing like gunshots, and I would run and get some paper and I would write it down. And my grandmother said, what are you doing? What I was doing, actually, I was thinking that if I wrote down the time that I heard the gunshots, in the day, I was convinced that the police were going to knock on the door and I was going to be the one to help them, solve this crime. And at a young age, I remember it so, vividly when I would watch the news and I would study, what the news people would say and, the crime in the area. So that's what got me attracted to, investigations. So as time went on, I went the path of, beauty pageants, modeling, the glamorous career, living in LA, stuff like that. But as I came back to take care of my mother from moving to LA, it was a no-brainer for me to want to get in law enforcement and basically go back to what I felt as a child. I can make a difference, and I've always wanted to be an investigator. I've always been good with people. I've obviously always been a talker, and very outgoing. And being a Christian, I always knew that I wanted to do good, because once I knew who God was for myself, I knew I wanted to do something to help change people's lives in a positive way. So growing up, I feel like it's certain experiences, and I'll just share this. My mother had a terrible ordeal when I was first born, and thank God she lived through it. But once I was old enough to know what she had experienced and was almost murdered, that also made a difference for me. Because in my mind, I felt like, I wanted to be a homicide detective. And when I knew her story, it kind of just made me see another reason why I wanted to make a difference on the streets of Philadelphia. But to be honest with you, I didn't choose Philadelphia. Philadelphia chose me, because when I got hired for Philadelphia, I was also waiting for Abington Police and Cheltenham. So, to say that I made the right choice, I believe I made the right choice as far as experience, but I just think that some things could be different, but I wouldn't change my path at all.
Officer Robinson, do you feel like people of color are treated differently by some police officers in Philadelphia? And if so, what would be positive steps toward reform, some of the reform that's being called for by protests in the streets?
Well, first of all, being an officer of color and also being a Black female officer, you are treated differently every day. Every day you are judged for the job that you do. Every day you're going to never forget that you are a Black female officer. Every day you're going to have someone tell you, believe it or not, and I mean every day, you're going to have someone who will say, on one hand, thank you for your service. On the other hand, sweetie, you're too cute to be out here in these streets. On the other hand, isn't it time for you to go inside? Meaning that, in their mind, a safer arena, for you to be into. So every day you're judged by the job that you do. And what's happening now with society, for example, I used to be able to go and just help someone, maybe on a car accident or maybe a rape, depends on what it is. It could be anything. But now you have so much with the racism. You have so much with the anti-police. You have so much with the, just being a female. You have the people that want to take, your video for you just doing your job. So it's so much harder out there now. But you just have to realize that the same way people think they're watching us, I've lived my life and my career to know that God is always watching what I do on a daily basis. So I set out every day to do, a positive job. But I will say society today and the job itself makes it harder for you to do it, because you have some officers that are afraid to do their job based on lack of experience, based on media, based on what's going on, in the world. But as far as what can be done, there's so much that can be done. But I just think it's just so sad that our job now is all about society only. Like I was saying before on the other Zoom call, you have no idea what we go through, behind the scenes. You have no idea when the officer has to work, nonstop for a month with no, time off. And of course, this only happens when certain bad incidents happen in the city, and then it can't be helped. But no one thinks about that officer that now may be fighting coronavirus, or the officer that has been sleep deprived, but you still have to get up every day and go do your job. So there's so much that can be done. But as far as programs, I just think it's going to be, it's harder now. It's harder now. And I think it should be a time, hopefully soon, but with coronavirus, with, things happening on the streets of Philadelphia, things happening, with the presidential race. When I say everything is affected by our job, everything. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, but everything that happens in the world affects us. So that's on a daily basis. So if I went to work tomorrow and then all of a sudden, a cop had to kill, or however it went, kill someone, I already know my life is going to change for at least a couple of months based on what happened. And I always tell people, you're so busy judging us in the uniform that we wear that you don't have no idea that everything depends on also where you work. And I always tell people, this is not about where I work per se, but just know where you work, you're more affected. If you're that officer that works in an area, for example, like Roxborough, you're not going to experience what the officer is experiencing in North Philadelphia or in West Philadelphia. So there's so much that can be done, for change. But like I said, our job depends on what happens in the world or in the streets of Philadelphia every single day. And I do want to say one thing that came to my mind. Also, I remember when I was out hurt, and it is so true. And this is the best example I can give you. I was out hurt because I had 4 major elbow surgeries, on this job, being injured. And I was the officer that had to work inside. I worked for a boss, and I was playing clothes every day. And I was playing clothes, and I had my police ID, but no one knew me as, Officer Robinson. They just knew, oh, it's Robin. So, so when you're going to work, you're looking good every day, you're doing your job, it was one thing. Well, a couple years down the line, when I put the uniform back on and went on the street, I had people saying, "You're a police officer?" These are the people I saw every single day. But the stereotype, they saw what they saw me with plain clothes, with the suits on. So they were judging me thinking that, oh, she's so nice, she's this, she's that. But then all of a sudden, when they saw you put the uniform back on, it was almost like a different person. Same person, you just didn't know what I did. And I didn't wear it across my chest. So sad to say, we're judged one way with the uniform, and we're judged definitely a different way when you don't have the uniform on.
I'd like to follow up with that. There's a, could you talk about the contrast that you experience as in a civilian role? I think you've touched on it with what you're just saying here, in the civilian role and in the professional role. But then also, could you talk about what you experience? So we're talking about racism here, so I'll bring it up. What's the difference that you experience from people of color and people, whites, particularly, in terms of that that stigma that you're carrying, or that perception that you're carrying, that you were just talking about in what you just said?
Okay. First, I'll say, once you're in law enforcement, the correct thing is we're no longer civilians. So obviously, when we walk down the street and maybe I'm at the gym, maybe it's the car that I drive, maybe it's where I live, you're always judged. Because this is why, for example, when people say, "Oh, do you have police tags?" And I never forget it, because how, oh yeah, you're young, you're like, oh, I'm going to have police tags. Well, now you learn sometimes you don't want that, because people actually, are looking to see if you're that officer who has police tags. Is your car going to be damaged? Or it's how you park it. And this is even with me now, depending on where you go, you park, where your tag is not showing, so you're judged every single day. And I'll just say, and I keep saying it over and over again, but you have to just know too, you're also judged. Are you that female that's feminine? Or are you that female that's more male dominant? Like, you can't look at me to think if you see an officer that's more, male dominant on the other side, that she'll be able to do a job better than myself. That's not how it goes. We're all here to do the same job. But society will tell you, and our job will tell you, if you see that fit officer on the street, sharp in the uniform, shoes are shine, uniform, intact. And then you see that older officer, obviously with maybe a lot of time on, and maybe they're not in great shape. Maybe their uniform is not looking like it's brand new. Once again, you'll be tried, you're judged, and everything. Once you get up and go out, even from a police car you drive and how you keep it clean, when I tell you, people judge you every single day. It's like you're not going to see me in a dirty police vehicle. You're just not. And anybody who knows me in the car that I drive, I am a steady car, they just know, oh, if they see a dirty car or they don't see me, they're like, oh, she must be off today. So people are watching every single thing you do. Racism. Obviously, I've always experienced that. You experienced that, even before what's going on now, but the sad reality is the only difference is now when all the riots were going on, and obviously I was a part of them, and you're being attacked, they're not looking at you saying, attack that Black female officer. If they want to attack you, they want to attack you, period. It doesn't matter you're a female. It doesn't matter how cute you are. It doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. So on that aspect, when that was going on, if they want to do you harm, believe me, they were trying to harm everyone. But on the other end, of the spectrum, it's crazy because the day after the riots, I was still working, of course, and I had the task of basically protecting the buildings that were pretty much demolished by fire. As I'm on the fire scene, I have so much experience, but as I'm on the fire scene, people, white, Black, whoever, Black Lives Matter, okay? I understand Black Lives Matter, but I'm sitting here protecting the fire department and the buildings that were demolished. And then you have the people, F you. These are the same people that I help every single day. But now I had to survive the riots where a lot of our officers got hurt immediately. I had to go back to work the next day and be on a fire scene for a lot of hours, but yet I was abused, I was cursed out, and all I was doing was protecting the scene and protecting the fire department and protecting the area from people. And the respect was almost like, you can't expect us to help you 1 minute, and in the next minute, you're cursing us out. And me in particular, I don't use profanity. So what happens is, at all, and anyone will tell you that, from the academy until now. So while you're cursing me out, I still have to just sit there and do my job. And then remember, you're on camera. You have people cursing you out. You have people saying maybe 5%, thank you for your service. The other 5, go back where you came from. So this is what happens on a daily basis.
What do you find helping you to work through that? I think there's a barrier or a boundary that you have to set up within yourself in terms of what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept, or how you're going to go home and go to sleep at night and not have that stuff running through your head. How do you find yourself managing those interactions that you have? Because you're having thousands of them in a given day, particularly in a hostile situation.
Right. Well, I have to say, I'm so thankful that I came on a job old enough. I came on a job mature enough. And I also am so thankful that I came on a job as a Christian, because I know that has saved me the entire time in my career. It first saved me, and I thought about this, thinking about before I came on here, it first saved me because I went through a horrible divorce. And I went through a divorce, obviously on the job. And not that everyone knew I was going through a divorce, but I also knew I was raised, you don't bring your problems to work. So every day, believe it or not, even though my background, of course, is, entertainment, acting, and all that, every day I would have to pray to God, please, and I prayed it every day, please allow me to put on my game face. And what I said to him about my game face every day, in other words, no matter what I'm going through at home, don't allow me to bring it to work. Allow me to still help people based on my career and the job that I chose, opposed to what I'm going through in my home life. So God has saved me so many times and every day, because when you go to work, and it is emotional, you go to work, you see so much, you do so much. People are thankful on one hand, then they're thankless on the other hand. But with me, prayer works. Prayer works every day. And then I tell people that people don't want to face this reality. They would say to me, "Oh my God, be careful, just get home at night." And I always tell people, I don't know how I'm going to leave here, but what's important to me is I know where I'm going. So then when people will say, "Oh my God, be careful." Well, I'll just say this. When you hear about on the last call, when they want to say about the blue wall and this, that, or whatever, I'll just say this. Imagine going to work, dealing with the people, of Philadelphia, and then you're dealing with the people that you work with. Maybe that, you see what goes on at work, but you can't talk about it. But still, you have to work with these same people, same things that are going on, and still handle yourself in a positive way. So I think what's really gotten me through, God first, maturity, but also knowing that I have always been a person knowing how to deal with all types of people. But what I tell the young officers or the people who are trying to come on, if this is a job that you came on just for the money and benefits, don't do it. Because you're going to make the money, you're going to have the great benefits. But if you know you are not a people person, if you know you have a problem still mistreating people, if you know you don't know how to carry yourself, this is not the job for you. And like in any job, any church, any position, you know who should be in that position and who should not.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. If not, I'll ask it. I would wonder if you're thinking of early retirement, given the kind of what you have to undergo every day on the job.
I'll just say this. I thank God that I do have the opportunity. I am at the age as well as the years of service where I could retire. And every day I talk to God, and people say, "Well, how much longer?" That's the question you always get to. How much longer are you going to stay? How much longer? And I tell people, and this is in all honesty, I am a phone call away or I am 5 years away. And the reason why I say that, because I give my life to God, I may get that phone call, and that phone call might say, "You know what? Job well done, but it's time for you to move on." But then I may still be here for 5 more years doing what I'm doing, prayerfully making a difference, prayerfully being utilized for the skills and the training that I truly do have, and in the end, it's still going to be rewarding, even though it gets tiresome. And believe me, I definitely get tired. But the good thing about it is, no matter how tired you get, there's always a way for God to give you rest. Maybe when this is all done, maybe you're in training for 5 days, because I love training. So that's, something different. And maybe also your break might come because you go on vacation. You just never know. But when you least expect it, the breaks will come. But I'm just praying. I'm praying every day. I don't know, I don't know what tomorrow has for me. I have no idea what today has for me. I just know this opportunity right here. I know stuff is happening because this was not planned. I didn't know Fred, I didn't know any of you, but it just happened because I was working on the streets of Philadelphia, being brutally honest with a civilian who had a question, and I always have an answer and always trying to help.
I just want to let everybody know that the panel discussion that I've referenced and the Officer Robinson has referenced can be found on Temple Beth Am's website. You can head over there and watch it. It was just an amazing experience. Thanks to Officer Robinson and the others. Also, this adult forum will be up on our YouTube channel for you to watch and to share with others who might be interested to learn as we have learned. And so just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that. And I'll hand it to Lee to close us.
And again, thanks so much for coming today and sharing with us. It gives us a much better understanding of the kinds of pressures and problems which people of color experience every day in their job. You're also a wonderful witness to your faith. That's you can be a Christian and also do your job, and that's good to know. So
Can I
thank you.
say one thing before I
Sure.
go? Thank you so much. I just wanted to say once again, thank you for the opportunity. But I think it's so important that people really know what goes on, you know, what really goes on. Not like I said before in the other Zoom call, I'm never afraid when God gives me an opportunity to speak, because if God gave me the opportunity, he's going to cover me in it. So I'm always thankful. I'm always honest. I appreciate any forum because I know it's needed. But most importantly, I always hope and pray people will leave here and understand, no matter what race you are, no matter what gender, no matter what your beliefs are, we are really out there truly trying to help someone. No one just signs up to say, I'm going to murder someone. No one just signs up to say that I'm going to mistreat anyone. You know, so I'm always thankful, and I'm hoping this will be, you know, of course, you know, go further than this. But the most important thing is I'm thankful because sometimes we don't have a voice, and I do believe we all have a voice. It's just a matter of having an opportunity to use it.
Thank you again, and God bless you as you continue your work over the next few days, years, whatever it may be. And thank you
so much
for sharing with us.
Thank you, Officer Robinson. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have fun at your wedding.
Have a great time.
I will. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.